going on, guys? In this video, we're gonna be putting on some power brakes on the truck. I'm super excited for this one because this will be a huge improvement over what we currently have. So in the last video, I said I needed two things to take this thing back out on the street, which were shocks and power brakes. The power brakes have arrived. They're from Pirate Jack. I know it sounds like a strange name, but that's where they're from. If you've never heard of their stuff, I'll leave a link to the product down in the description below. And let's go ahead and open this box, see what we got. All right, so this first box is our 7-inch brake booster. The reason I got 7 inches is because it looks like there might be a little bit of clearance issues, just basically given the fact that I have the other master cylinder in there, which you'll see here in a minute, and that's for the hydraulic clutch setup. So we opted to go with a 7-inch because obviously it gives us more room. And also the valve covers will clear a lot easier. And since for the near future of this truck, I don't expect to be throwing crazy power mounts at it or have it going crazy fast, 7-inch power booster is gonna be perfectly fine. Box number 2 is this dual reservoir master cylinder. This is gonna be awesome because right now I'm on a single reservoir master cylinder, which means that if I lose one brake, probably gonna lose them all if it's like a lack in pressure as far as the brake goes. Third box is just some mounting brackets, and then the final thing is just this little bag that has a adjustable rod in there, and that way we're going to be able to tie the new power brakes into the brake pedal. Obviously we have quite a bit of disassembly to do, and then we'll get the old brake system out of there and then look at what we got to do to get this new system mounted in there. All right, so all I'm doing now is just taking this little factory rod off of there. It's right up there. So you have to put a wrench on one side and a socket on the other, and there's actually a little hole up there that you can access this whole thing through. So that's what I'm doing. All right, so I've got all that painted and all the rust has been removed. So I'm gonna take you over here to where we're gonna put this bracket onto this booster. I've already put the rod on there, and if you look right here, there's a little nut, and then there's this rod that you tighten down on there. By the way, you need to make sure that that little notched out part is on this side, that way you can get a wrench on it. Then you have this little end here, you gotta make sure that that is on there. I kind of threaded it halfway down, and again, you can grease this. So these brackets look like they could be mounted either way, and the reason why is because there's a little notch here. So that looks like they notched it so that it could sit against the base of this on the power booster. So it looks like this is going to be the correct way to mount this. And also, if you look at it from the side, you can see that where this will mount up on this side of the bracket is perfectly in the center with where this rod wants to be at right now. So that's why this is going to be the correct way to mount these. And I would say it's probably easier to go ahead and mount these actual brackets on the firewall first, then mount the booster to these brackets, because if not, then you'll be fighting getting these little bolts in here. So basically, we're gonna go ahead and mount the brackets onto the firewall and then go from there. So I did coat the firewall with some POR 15, and that stuff, if you get it on your hands, it's pretty bad. So just make sure that you use some gloves, because I've been warned by you guys multiple times that if you get it on your hand, it won't come off for like months, and trust me, I learned. Just gonna guesstimate where this needs to be tightened to. Then we're gonna go ahead and install this back into the truck. All right, so I'm gonna snug that down, and then we're gonna go inside the cab of the truck and see what we have to do to get that rod attached to that brake pedal. All right, before we go into the cab, I'm gonna go ahead and install the master cylinder on here. Okay, so the way that it came, the end was just a little bit too long on this rod, so I just grinded it down a little bit, and that'll give us a little bit more room to work with. So, didn't mess up any threads. I took maybe like a 1/4 inch off of it, so I'm gonna see if we can put it back in the truck and see if it'll work now. Okay, so I had to order some brake fittings and stuff, that way I could complete going from the master cylinder all the way back to all of the brakes. So this is gonna be day 2 of this install because obviously I needed some parts. So parts are here. We have all the mechanical parts installed, which is the master cylinder, the booster, and then the shaft that goes to the brake pedal. We got all that figured out. I still feel like the rod is a little bit too long. We could probably go and get a shorter rod just from like a hardware store, and it would give me a little bit more pedal travel, but I had to put a little bit of preload on the master cylinder to get it hooked up to the brake pedal. It's not always a bad thing because it takes a lot of the slop out of the brake pedal. I think it's gonna be perfectly fine because it takes very little brake pressure to activate the brake drums. So, all right, so from here, it's all about plumbing, and I'm gonna take you closer to see what we gotta do. So as you can see, the existing fittings, which I think are a 3/8 flare, are not gonna work with this. One of them is a 9/16 and the other one is a 1/2 inch. So basically I was able to find a kit on Amazon that had 3/16 line with all the appropriate fittings that I needed for like 25 bucks. So I will link to that product down in the description as well, so that way you have all the brake fittings that you need for this. All right, so some of the things I got was a 1-man bleeding kit, some 3/16 line. I got the fittings that I needed. I think that these are some 3/8 couplers and some 3/8 like flared ends. So, all right, so first off, we're going to plug the passenger side because there's 2 ports on the passenger side. Again, one's 9/16 and then the other one is a 1/2 inch. So the back side is 9/16, front is a 1/2 inch. So in the conversion kit, they actually provide you with 2 of these fittings, and since it's a flare fitting, technically you shouldn't need any kind of sealer on them or anything. So as long as you snug them up, the flare is what's going to create the seal. So for the driver's side, we're going to need both of these fittings right here, which pretty much they will just work with the 3/16 line. Put a flare on the end, and then they will go straight into the master cylinder without you having to use a bunch of funky fittings and stuff to make it work. All right, so since we know that we're going to use this same line, but we can't use the same fitting just because of the size difference here, then we're going to need to take this fitting off, which is just going to be as easy as cutting the little flared end off. You don't want to take too much off. Okay. And then we're going to create a new flare after we take that off. So for this one, we're going to need this 9/16. I don't know if you can see that or not, but now we have a nice flared end that we can just feed into this side of the master cylinder. And then we'll tighten that line down whenever it's time. Wanted to give you a shot of this. Up here, there is a little coupler that puts 2 of those 3/8 flare fittings together, and then it runs down here to this little 4-way. And forgive me, I have not done any rust treatment on this part of the frame yet. So basically the easiest way to use this one is just to use this line right here for the rear brakes, take out this little 4-way, put a coupler in here, and then just run it straight back to the rear brakes, and then your rear brakes are good. Then you have to run a separate line up here for the front, and then you can just tap into both sides of this right here with those little T adapters that I got. All right, so rather than bore you with plumbing the entire thing, I'm just going to go ahead and put you on a time lapse, plumb the entire truck, and then get back to it whenever we have everything done. All right guys, so possibly the worst part is done. So the plumbing is all done. I just don't care for plumbing because then you gotta check for leaks, which I have not done that yet. This is actually still empty. I'm gonna need to pry that open, but I still have to bench bleed the master cylinder, get the vacuum port all hooked up back there. So before we fire this thing up though, we are actually gonna be able to use our little bleeder kit, one-man bleeder, and see if we can get all these air bubbles out. And there's gonna be a ton of them because we've hacked into the lines and stuff like that. So it's 2 in the morning and I'm plumbing a brake system. Not exactly what I wanna be doing at 2 in the morning, but yeah, I'm gonna get some sleep and I will catch you guys in the next video. But tomorrow we're gonna finalize all this stuff, hopefully take it out for a little test drive depending on if it's raining or not. It's raining super hard right now. It's been raining very hard the last several days, so more than likely it'll be raining, but if not, I might still get you a little driveway action or something. So anyways, I will see you guys tomorrow. All right guys, so it's the next day. I have everything plumbed up. I've added some fluid to the master cylinder. The biggest thing about that is you have to bench bleed this. I see people all the time saying that they added fluid to the master cylinder and they pumped the brakes like crazy and they're not getting any pressure in the lines. And it's because you probably did not bench bleed your master cylinders. You could probably get away with doing it with a helper if you wanted to leave it in the truck, but it's just easier for me to take it out and put it on my bench vise. Basically, you're going to push the piston all the way in, hold it, and then plug both holes and then let off of the piston. And basically what that does is it pushes air out of the bottom here, and then whenever you plug both of those holes, well, you can do it with your fingers or whatever, but once you plug both of those holes and you let go of the pressure, it's going to pull fluid in instead of the air. So that's the biggest thing. You will not be able to get any fluid at all to go through your lines if you do not bench bleed a master cylinder. And while we're on the topic of bleeding, this is the little one-man bleeder kit I was telling you about. Basically, this will go into the bleeder valve, and then this has to mount. It's got a little magnet on it. You can mount it up above. It has to be somewhere up above where the bleeder is. So basically inside this little bottle, there's a little straw, and it goes pretty much all the way to the bottom of the bottle. So you're gonna get inside the truck, punch the brakes a bunch, and it's going to push fluid through this nozzle that's in the bleeder valve, push the fluid up and then into this bottle. And then as you let off of the brake pedal, it's going to suck the fluid back in, replacing the air with fluid, if that makes sense. So these are super useful and you no longer have to have a helper to help you bleed your brakes. So I've already bled the back brakes, so I just got to do the 2 front brakes, and once those are bled, this thing should be good. I got to hook up the vacuum line, but once that's done, this whole thing is ready to try. Okay, so we have the tube hooked up to the bleeder valve, and then it's going up above where the bleeder valve is, and it's just kind of sitting on the shock that we just put in. So we're gonna pump the brakes a few times until we see all of the bubbles in this line are completely gone. It's just solid fluid, and then you'll see this reservoir fill up, maybe not so well on camera, but yeah, we're gonna go bleed them. I feel like I got all the air that I can out of the brake lines, so now we're just gonna hook up a vacuum line from the booster to the back of the carburetor. Your vacuum port might be in a different area, but for mine it's just right here on the back. I'm just using a piece of braided hose. I think they just look good, so that's the only reason. You could use rubber or anything. It's just a very low amount of vacuum that runs through here, so it's not like it has to be something crazy. All right, and obviously you want to position this in a way that it's not going to interfere with your accelerator linkage or anything like that. The pedal is feeling very tight, so I feel like we're gonna have a good amount of brake pressure. So once this is on, we'll see what we can do. All right, I guess we can see what happens now. We're just gonna allow this to cook for a minute. That really is just all brake fluid. It got on every single header tube and then down to the collector. And I'm gonna turn a fan on, try to ventilate this place out, and then we'll start it back up again and see what we can do. Oh yeah, lots of brake fluid. All right, so everything seems to be working. We're gonna let this place air out and then we'll close out this video. All right guys, so everything is working in there. Everything feels pretty good. The only thing is, like, again, that adjustable rod is a little bit too long, so it puts a little bit too much preload onto the master cylinder, so I'm not getting full pedal travel. Now, the pedal travel, like on this setup versus the last setup, seems to be a lot shorter. So my goal, of course, was to shorten the pedal travel. That way, when I'm in second gear, I can actually get my foot onto the brake, because a little bit taller guy, got size 16 shoes, and it's really hard for me to go, while I'm in second gear, to go from the gas to the brake. So if I'm able to shorten that rod just even a little bit, it'll give me that much more room to be able to move my leg over from the gas pedal to the brake pedal. Other than that, I feel like everything's working pretty good. And now if we lose the front brakes, we still have rear brakes and vice versa. So it's a lot safer for the road to have a backup set of brakes, and on top of the emergency brake, which on this one, it does not work. So I've got to fix that as well. I think any hardware store should have that adjustable rod that I need to make it work with the way that I want to set up the brake pedal. But once that's done, then we'll be able to actually take this thing on longer rides, and then those will definitely be posted here on YouTube, because that'll be a big moment for this truck. All the products in this video are going to be listed down in the description below. I'll try to include everything from like the one-man brake bleeder, that's a tongue twister, all the way to obviously the master cylinder, the booster, and all that stuff. Where I've got the little brake light switch mounted right now is at the top of the pedal travel. So it's only activated at the top of the pedal travel, and there's not enough thread on there to adjust it as far down as I want to, if that makes sense. So we might have to go to more of like a pressure switch on the master cylinder, but we'll figure all that out. Of course, it'll be posted here on YouTube and the Facebook page as well. If you haven't joined that already, there's a lot more stuff that I post on there. So other than that, if you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, so we can help to grow this channel and make some awesome projects like the truck behind me. So I've got a long week planned with projects for all the vehicles. So I'm going to get to work, maybe get a couple, 2 or 3 videos ready, and those will be posted as we go. So hope you guys liked the video.